new topic. The concept of proficiency. This is the 12th unit in our 10th paper, guys. So those who have the textbooks, please keep them open, and then just follow. We'll discuss a few things about the concept of proficiency. And in our last class, yesterday's class, we have actually discussed about the spoken language. The spoken language, the components of a spoken language is what are the essential elements of a spoken language is pronunciation, fluency, and appropriacy, as we have discussed in our previous lesson, previous class. Yeah, we have discussed about how the schools and colleges have, coming up with laboratories, digital laboratories for spoken English, right? And then language laboratories, the term that they give for this kind of laboratory is a language laboratory. So this kind of, laboratories are given importance in these kind of scenario because now we are embarking onto into a global world. Of course, we are already into that, but still, still many people are, moving forward to, learning English language. They actually understand the, the benefits that entails this, entails with learning this language, English language, right? Maybe it is for professional purpose or social purpose or whatever, social linguistic purpose also. All in all these functional, social, and academically. All in these three, in these three areas, it has become a mandatory language that we have to learn, right? There is no other option for us. We have to learn this language. And especially coming to the spoken language, it is much more important, right? So guys, what we looked into our previous class is that pronunciation is very, very important. As we have a neutral accent pronunciation, neutral pronunciation is there. And accent neutralization is also there. And then we have our own variety, distinct variety of language is there in our community. That's what we have understood in our previous class, right? And then we also understood about the fluency. Fluency is the art or skill of speaking, writing formal, things, formal, especially as a way to persuade or influence people, right? We understand what is fluency. Fluency is the art of speaking or art of writing, whatever fluency that you have to, for example, you have to persuade somebody. You can actually, with your fluency, with your own rhetoric weapon, you can use the rhetoric weapon where you can actually, persuade people or make them or influence them, right? That's how. All of a sudden, this got disconnected.
Ma'am, voice is also little
low. Oh, ma'am. Okay. So maybe my system is a very old system. I'm still hanging. I'm still using that. It's a 15-year-old system. So maybe there's a mic problem. You just have to bear with it, guys, actually. So anyways, guys, you have understood, right, in your previous class, whatever we have discussed, the fluency, pronunciation, fluency, and appropriacy. As we have discussed about appropriacy, that to revisit what we have discussed in our previous class about appropriacy is the usage of the language, right? Formal language or informal language. This basically comes in the periphery of in the periphery of social linguistic area, where you will be not only social linguistic but also functional functional settings also, this kind of appropriacy is very, very important. To what extent formal language you need to use. Formal or informal language is basically depends on the usage of this formal or informal language, basically depends on the relationship that you maintain with the person with whom you are speaking to. That's how this appropriacy is all about. And then we have actually understood about the target levels in the spoken English also, right? Target levels in spoken English. What is the target level? Like how much, what is the competence levels of the students that they have understood. So that's how we have, what is the target level of academically, what should be the competent level of the person, and socially to what extent that we need the language for, and then at the functional level also is very, very important. Like, for example, as we have discussed in our previous class, that, exchanging pleasantries and the, greetings and all that, we need the basic, phatic communion is very much necessary for the people, right? So that's how we have understood in our previous class. And then coming to the concept of proficiency, we all understand what is proficiency, right? I have made a PPT on this particular chapter. I will share the screen for you guys. Yeah, the concept of proficiency. So as we all understand that what is the competence, what is the proficiency? Proficiency, if you look up for the meaning of this word proficiency in a Longman Dictionary of Contemporary English, the meaning that you find is it is a high standard of skill or ability, high standard skill or ability, right? Proficiency is a person, if you say that this person is very proficient, that means he is able to, use the language in all the general purposes. So this is an ability to entail. This is an ability. Proficiency is a language ability to use in all the general purposes. Okay, so that is called proficiency. There's wherein you can use the in all the general purposes means like whatever, speaking at different situations, speaking with I mean, wherever you go, like general purposes, like social purposes, and then academically, whatever. This is proficiency. That the ability is called the proficiency in language entails the ability to use language for all the general purposes. So the problem that and the general purposes, like when you speak to people around, that is general purposes. And then the concern with the proficiency arises only out of the need to use a second language or a foreign language for varied purposes, academic, occupational, and social. So when do we find a problem of using this when it is a second? So guys, I just want to put it in a simple way, like language, whatever language, our mother tongue is there. We are proficient in speaking our mother tongue, right? And then when it comes to the second language or a foreign language, the problem arises for using it proficiently in varied purposes, like academic, occupational, and social. Okay, so you got my point, guys. So what is that Longman Dictionary talks about is the meaning for the proficiency is high standard or the ability, high standard of ability or a skill or ability. So this is, see, you are proficient in your mother tongue, no doubt about it. But when it comes to the second language, the concerns, the problems that arises to acquiring proficiency is in the second language or a foreign language. Okay, so in using that foreign language or the second language in varied purposes like academic, occupational, and social purposes. So this is one important thing. So when do we acquire when do we acquire proficiency in a second language or a foreign language, that when you you have the ability to use all the four skills. Okay, you use all the four skills like LSRW. So that there you will actually, that is called proficiency, right, guys? So what my idea is, the concern arises only when you are using a second language or a second language or a foreign language, then the proficiency, you know, is a challenging thing there. Proficiency is particularly challenging there to use that particular second language or a foreign language. So what happens is that second language does not always see whatever the second language that we are learning in our schools, colleges, etc. That will not actually promise us the oral proficiency, right? That's the reason why there are so many, as I told you, there are so many, spoken English institutes. So whatever the literacy in the second language does not always vouch for the oral proficiency. We are learning this language for a very long time, but still we don't have an oral proficiency. That is the problem. So what are the measures that we can actually take to, to improve? What are the strategies that we can follow? Strategies that we can follow to improve our proficiency, that we will be discussing in this particular chapter. So, and then the tests that are conducted to measure the proficiency levels of the student, the standardized test will not help in any way. The standardized test cannot help to measure the proficiency of a particular candidate. So what the United States, there was a movement. Okay, there was a movement in the United States which actually, they have set some criteria, set some standards, oral standards, established oral standards by the Foreign Service Institute and then developed by the academic associations. So what they did was, to measure the proficiency, oral proficiency, especially oral proficiency of a person, the standardized test will never help. So there was a movement in the United States, and then they established oral standards by the Foreign Service Institute, and then it is developed by the academic associations. So they have set some criteria wherein they can measure the proficiency of the oral proficiency of a person, right? So we can actually get to know about the writing skills, or see, guys, actually writing skills, if a person has got a writing skill, it doesn't mean that they are proficient in speaking. Oral proficiency is also there. It is actually two different things. The one who can actually write may not speak. That is one thing. So by looking at the writing skills of a person, we don't judge the oral competence. We don't get an idea about his oral proficiency. So this one, they have set the United States, with the help of this one Foreign Service Institute, has set some criteria to measure the proficiency of a particular person, right? And then communicative, and then what we have understood is that then these things are like developed by the academic associations. So academic associations are like, institutes, schools, colleges, etc., etc. So these have actually developed by the academic associations. So based on those, principles, they have developed the concepts, or what is that? Concepts, or methodology to improve the proficiency of the students. So this one, the communicative approach to the language teaching addresses the proficiency aspects of the language. Now this is the point here. So what is that? These measures, whatever they have taken to measure the proficiency of a particular student, they have set some norms here, and then they are developed by the academic associates, and then this one is actually communicative approach to the language teaching addresses the proficiency aspects of the language. So when we spoke about the approaches, right? The basically in the previous unit, we have different approaches to teaching and learning language, right? So different approaches are there. Structural oral approach, audio-lingual approach, and functional notional method is there. There is a communicative method also. Communicative approach is also there. So this one, in order to acquire a proficiency of the language, this communicative approach is the ideal one to be, advocated for the learners. So that's one thing, guys. And then coming to the next one. So that is the introductory part of it. Introduction to this particular lesson, that is proficiency. So the points to be noted here is that, first of all, when you are writing an answer for this on this particular concept, the concept of proficiency, first of all, we have to understand about what is proficiency. According to the Longman dictionary, it is the high standard ability or the skill, right? And then it is that it entails the ability to use the language in all general purposes. But when it comes to the usage of the second language or the foreign language for varied purposes, academic, occupational, and the social purpose, this foreign language or the second language will always have some concerns. And then so in order to acquire proficiency in a second language, these are the 4 skills that you need to, advocate or like propose to the students. So, and then this one particularly, so in order to measure the literary proficiency or oral proficiency of a person, this standardized test will not help, but rather with the movement of there was a movement in United States, and then with the help of the Foreign Service Institute, they have set some criteria to test the oral proficiency of the students. And then this proposal is being developed by the academic associates. And then what the methodology that they adapt to teach the proficiency in the institutes or academic institutes, they follow the communicative approach. This approach is an ideal one to which addresses the proficiency, addresses the aspects of the language. So that one thing, guys. This is what is there in the introductory part of the lesson. And so moving on, proficiency defined. What is proficiency defined? So Jim Cummins has actually theorized every individual has got one, underlying language proficiency, a common underlying language proficiency. Every individual by birth, they are born with the ability to have a cognitive analysis of a particular thing, and then they will definitely have they will acquire one language. They'll acquire at least one language without any effort, right? That is mother tongue. And acquiring mother tongue, the first language can be always acquired without conscious effort, right? It is unconsciously the student, the kid will learn this one. So what is that? Unconscious process entails the development of a certain understanding of how the language operates. So this is the ability of this is a general, by birth, this is the ability of every human being to acquire one language, right, through an unconscious process, and entails the development of the certain underlying understanding of how a language operates. So we all know that. That's the simplest thing. Simple thing is that I hope you all understood this one, right? The idea behind Jim Cummins. What Jim Cummins theorized is, whatever his theory is, that every individual has an underlying language proficiency. The human being learn at least one language without conscious effort or process, and develops the certain ability wherein he can understand how a particular language operates. So we know that. Okay. And then what happens is that after acquiring the first language, entails the development of certain understanding. This is I finished, right? The same underlying competence operates while the surface features of the new language are acquired. So this innate ability, I'll just put it in a simple way. The innate ability, the innate means the basic ability of a person to learn first language, to learn fast and first language will always help to learn the second language, provided the surface features of the new language are acquired. Got it, guys? I think I'm clear. I'm very clear about this statement, right? So what is that? According to the Jim Cummins theory, that every individual has got an innate ability to acquire one language without a conscious effort. And this ability will actually help him to acquire, the second language, provided the surface features of the new language are acquired. The surface features means the basic features of that language is acquired. The second language features. So that is one thing, guys. And then Cummins actually defines two dimensions of the language. One is the BICS and one is the CLAP. I think you are aware of this one. BICS is basic interpersonal language skills. That is the one which is innate ability of acquiring a language. BICS develops first in a natural acquisition, right? And then what is CLAP? CLAP is cognitive academic language proficiency, which is acquired in an instructional settings. So that is one thing. So BICS develops fast in all the natural language acquisition, but need not follow the CLAP. Oh, what is happening? CLAP develops when an individual enters the formal education system and engages in academic language. So these are Cummins defines what is that first. What is his theory? First, he says that every human being has got an ability to understand, to learn one language unconsciously without any effort, and he also develops a certain understanding of how this language operates. And then this basic ability will actually help them to learn the second language, provided the surface features of the new language are acquired. And then he is defining two dimensions of the language. One is the BICS and one is the CLAP. So this is basic interpersonal language skills, and the CLAP is cognitive academic language skills. So you all understand this one. This is basic development is natural acquisition, and CLAP is a formal educational acquired by the through the formal education system, right? And then coming to the next one, and then sometimes what happens is that, or in Indian schools, like see, one more thing is that it is not necessary that the BICS is been acquired fast and then the CLAP is cognitive academic language proficiency can be acquired later. It can be reversed. Okay, first the child can actually acquire CLAP even before he understands the basic interpersonal skill, language skill. So this one, the reversal of the two aspects interferes with the normal acquisition process, and great deal of effort needs to be made to get big. So guys, you have understood that. So 2.5 years, by the time they actually acquire this basic interpersonal language skills, the child is being put into the school, and where he will be exposed to this CLAP, cognitive academic language proficiency. Then what happens is that there is a great deal of interference between these two, CLAP and BICS, and then they have to put an extra effort to learn to get the BICS. And so this was earlier referred to as the textual aspect of being stronger than the interpersonal. So this is the basic. This is what is the problem that arises when a child is put at an early age in an academic institute, formal education system. So the CLAP and the BICS will interfere with each other, and then there is an There is a lot of effort to be put to acquire bits. So conscious effort is needed there. Then, so guys, and then moving forward, proficiency. Yeah. And in the proficiency in the language, describe what is that proficiency. Now, the basic understanding about proficiency, we have understood this is an ability, high level ability or the skill, right? And then, and another, meaning for it is that a proficiency in language, for example, is actually described as balance between the bits and claps. This is the basic proficiency in language. May be described as the balance development of the both bits and claps. So this is the proficiency of that. This is the definition for the proficiency in language. So, and what is that? What is the balance development? It spreads across all the 4 skills. So using all the 4 skills like LSRW skills, that is the proficiency in the language. So guys, the person who is able to understand, use all the 4 skills in all the 3 situations, wherever he is, in whatever context he is. For example, social linguistic, either it can be a social linguistic context, or it can be a academic context, or it can be a functional or professional context. If that person is able to use all the 4 skills along with the bits, then he is proficient in a language. So, and moving further, each skill may be deserved. And so now, in the, what is that? In an educational setting, all these 4 skills deserves to be focused individually and at the same time integratedly. So you cannot alienate one skill from the other, right? It has to be integrated, and at the same time it needs to be separately being taught. So I think you have seen in many of the degree textbooks that it is grammar is there, conversational, what is that, speaking skills is there, listening skills is there, reading skills are there. So it is been segregated. I mean, it is been separated, but at the same time they should be integrated. Integration of the skills is what achieves proficiency. So this is how proficiency of a language can be acquired by focusing on all the 4 skills. So intra-agency language roundtable. There is a table, guys, in your textbook, which actually gives you a the proficiency levels of the people, like levels of the students. So 2 plus 3, and then 3 plus and 4. So there are certain levels are there. So intra-agency language roundtable and or American Council of Teaching of Foreign Languages splits advanced proficiency into component skills of language. So this is how there are the 2 plus level is there, 3 is there, and 3 plus level is there, and 4 is there. So you just have to go through this one. What at 2 plus level, what is the skill? I mean, each skill is been identified as a separate in separate column, and then so you just have to read the what is the ability, what is the objective that they will be realized, what they will be able to do at this particular level. So 2 plus level, what is the ability of the listening, and what is the ability of the 2 plus level student in speaking activity and reading activity and writing activity. Like that, there are 3rd and 3 plus and 4 levels of it. And so coming to knowing the language and know the language and knowing the language. There is a difference between know the language and knowing the language, guys. So I think most of you are aware of this one. Knowing what is knowing a language, and know a language and knowing a language. So we will actually understand what is this. So see, for example, know the language. Actually, knowledge about language does not always lead to language use. In most of the second language instructional settings, the former is taught and tested, presuming that it will lead to the language use. So the knowledge of the language does not, I mean, a person who is very good at writing and then knowing the language. For example, there is a slight, I can give you one example here, guys. As usually, I have given you already that a Telugu medium student, that is the, actually example, that's the example which is given in your textbook also, guys. I'll just read out the example which is there in your textbook only. What is that? Yeah, the same example, right? So I'll read out this, guys. Those who study in the English medium schools following the ICSE syllabus are proficient users of the English, but may not know enough about know enough about grammatical terms. So they are knowing the language. Knowing the language means they are able to use the language, but they won't be they don't know about the know enough about the language. That means that they would not be able to write the grammatical answers, questions, write answers to the grammatical terms or grammatical rules. So that is know the language. Knowing the language is able to use the language. Know the language means the people who are able to, answer all the grammatical, all the grammatical exercises very effectively and very efficiently. But at the same time, they would not be able to use the language in the, in reality or in the, practical usage. That's how this know the language and knowing the language. That is the difference there. So that is what is there in it. Knowledge about language does not always lead to language use. In most second language instructional settings, the former is taught and tested. The former is taught and tested, presuming that this will lead to the language use. So knowledge of the language is taught. Knowledge about language is taught in the instructional settings, assuming that they have, with the intention, with the idea that this will lead to the usage of the language in the real life situations, but which is not correct. Okay, which is conversely, those who use language need not necessarily know about the language. So a person who can speak language necessarily does, need not necessarily know about the language. That means he don't have to answer what is a noun or what is a verb or anything. So that's how it happens. So this found to be obvious so in case of the two broad groups of the students in our educational system. So there is a disparity between two groups. There is a difference. The students are separated into two groups, wherein English medium students and Telugu medium students. Where some of the Telugu medium students know the language, but English medium students who come from ICSE syllabus, they will be knowing the language. So that is the difference, guys. Many students from regional medium schools may be able to answer questions relating to grammar, but may not be able to use the language fluently and confidently. So that is the difference between know the language and knowing the language. And so conversely, those who use the language need not necessarily know about the language. So conversation, know about. And then coming to Noam Chomsky, this guy actually highlighted the distinction between the competence and performance. Okay, so we have understood about Jim Cummins theory. Now we are talking about Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky highlighted the distinction between competence and performance. And so guys, he defines competence as an ideal speaker hearer's knowledge of his language operating within a completely homogeneous speech community. So competence is what? A homogeneous group. What do you mean by a homogeneous group? What is homogeneous? Of same kind or alike, right? People who are having same kind of skills or same kind of background knowledge, etc. So ideal speaker hearers knowledge of this of his language operating within the completely homogeneous speech community. Here, please make a note of this completely homogeneous, because he is talking about competence and performance. So competence is actually among the homogeneous, completely homogeneous group. And then it sums up a tacit knowledge of the language structure, that is knowledge that is commonly not conscious or available for the spontaneous report, but necessarily implicit in the ideal listener speaker can say. Performance is actually use of the language in concrete situations. So performance is in actual use of the language in concrete situations. Okay, so this is the difference between the competence and the performance. Competence and a competence, we can look at the competence of a particular person in a completely homogeneous group, speech community. But whereas performance is, we can see the performance of a particular person in the concrete situations. That is real life situations, like concrete situations, persons, situations, actions, etc., etc. So this is concrete situation. And so this is the idea of Noam Chomsky. This is the theory of Noam Chomsky about the distinction between the competence and performance. And now Saucer. And what is this one? Yeah, he made a distinction between langue and parlo. Langue is a structure of the language. What is this? Parole. Okay, parole is its manifestation in the actual use accompanied by variation. So langue is the structure of the language, and then this is parole is its manifestation in the actual use accompanied by the variation. So manifest means when you know the structure of the language, you should be able to manifest in the actual use by different variations. Like for example, we learn, right? This is the structure of a particular sentence. So we will actually use manifest, means we will create some according to the situation, according to the demand of the situation or the necessity or the requirement. You have your own sentences, right? You know the structure, and then you create you manifest the sentences. That's how this Saucer has actually said that. Chomsky actually considers his distinction to be superior because he was considering not just the language, but the underlying processes. So these two people, Chomsky and Saucer, they have their own ideology or the theories about the language. And then Chomsky considers his distinction to be superior than the Saucer's. So it is also viewed language at the level of concrete person situation. So Noam Chomsky considers his view about the language is the execution of the language, at the level of concrete persons, situations, and actions. So he considers his theory to be superior than the sources. So now next one is Zellheim's views the communicative competence is overall underlying knowledge and ability for the language. It is not merely linguistic competence, but socio-linguistic competence that is not only grammatically accurate, but socio-cultural appropriacy. So this is Helm's view of the proficiency or communicative competence about the language. So he views that communicative competence is the overall underlying knowledge and the ability to use it in all the perspectives, like not merely just linguistic competence, but socio-linguistic competence, that is not just grammatically accuracy, but also socio-cultural appropriacy. So that is his theory. And next comes to the communicative competence consists of number of subcompetences. So communicative competence consists of number of subcompetences. What is that? Cannell and Swine identified the following 4 competences. These 4 competences are grammatical and linguistic competence, discourse competence, social linguistic competence, and strategic competence. These are the sub-skills, sub-competent skills that are entailed with the overall communicative competence. So guys, you have understood this one. So we actually learned about the theories or the theories about Jim Cummins, Saucer, Noam Chomsky, Del Helms, and then yeah, and also this yeah. So this is the another person who has given is, and Cannell and Swain identified these four components of the communicative competence. This is the overall concept of the sub skills that are associated with the linguistic competence. What I mean, where am I? Okay. Now next one. So these are the theories of different people. And now coming to the proficiency development. How do we acquire the proficiency? What are the strategies? What are the techniques we should be following in order to acquire the proficiency development? So the attempt, therefore, at the school level, we have to start it at the school level. Listening, introducing listening and speaking at the earliest stages, both where English is the medium of instruction, where it is a subject in the curriculum. So exposure to this listening, exposure to the language is very, very important. At the same time, introducing listening and speaking at a very early stage is ideal for, you know, improving the proficiency of the language. And then materials, introduction of the materials is also another aspect. Exposure is one aspect, and then introduction of the audio video formats is another one. Another you know, strategy or the technique that you would actually follow in order to develop the proficiency of a person. And then so here heard language is always as a rich source of language input. Whenever we hear, it is it's a great source of input. Like we will get to know about the new words and the new sentences and language also. We will get to know about the pronunciation, the intonation. So it is a great source of language input, right? Heard language, like listening to something. So reading also, reading text can be used as a stimulus for oral discussion, and then reading also. See, as we have understood, in order to, you know, develop the proficiency in a language, all these four skills are to be integrated into the curriculum. So the first one is what we have understood is that the listening, right? Heard language is nothing but the listening of the language. And then reading the text. Reading the text is, how do you do that? Reading the text by stimulating the oral discussions. When you give a text, they just have to read it, and then stimulus for the oral discussion has to be, you know, given like advice to the students, and is crucial aspect of promoting progress. And this one, stimulating the oral discussion, will always help the students to, you know, acquire the proficiency, or like, you know, develop the speaking skills. This can be followed up by the writing also. So listening, reading, and writing. And then so when you write, then reviewing each other's writing can again lead to the discussion. So again, this is all interlinked, right? So interaction among the four skills is very necessary for activation of the whole language for authentic communication. This contributes for the overall proficiency. So these are the strategies that you can actually follow to make a person, to make a set of students proficient in a particular language. So I think, guys, you have understood this one. Okay. And then conversational English is sought to be developed without reference. So, and then again, guys, one more important point to be noted here is that conversational English is sought to be developed without the reference to any textbook. This makes the student. So whenever, so this kind of, when this is true, but even though this is true, but many students are unwilling to participate as they do not have anything to say. So conversational English without reference to any textbook, but the students are unwilling to, take up this kind of activity because they don't have anything to say. So providing a reference point. So what we can do is we can adapt, like, providing a reference point and basing speaking on some kind of input, written, visual, or oral, if is necessary, is very necessary, especially especially to build the confidence levels of the student. So this is, I think you have understood, guys. Conversational English can only be, learned through without reference to the textbook. And then because the students are not willing to take up this kind of activity in the practical schools or setting a practical in the schools or institutes, because they don't have anything to say. So we need to provide them a reference point by, giving them a visual or a written one or an oral one. And so this one actually makes the student confident in building their confidence levels. So most Indian students cannot speak unless they put things down in writing. So this is the one good idea, guys. Actually, many Indians they write before they speak, right? So that's a good idea actually. And then see what is that? This writing can be used initially. It can be used as a prop. You can be used as a tool, and it can be used as a tool to take off for speaking. So once they practice for a certain time, for a certain period of time, then they can actually visualize the written part of the topic in their mind, and then they can actually, start speaking about it. So that can be an ideal one. So initially, writing is a very, essential thing wherein they can actually, those the students who hesitate to speak extempore, they can actually write down and then, speak about it. And then over a period of time, this writing part can be visualized in their mind, and then they can speak without, writing also. Listening is most important and usually provided in the school situations. Most students find it difficult to follow. So this is what happens is that many students will, um, once they leave the school, many students will find it difficult, listening to understanding the professional subjects in the class, because they have not been used to listening to spoken language. So generally in the high schools, or like after the school, at the college level also, many teachers who actually speak language, the students will find it a little difficult to, follow them, because generally in the school they are not so trained to, their ears are not tuned to hearing the spoken language. So that there arises the problem. So training in listening to speech at the conversational speed becomes essential. So that's the reason why we have to give them this kind of conversational training in listening to speech at the conversational speed becomes essential. That we have to give them training in the, listening to some speeches and all that, so that they can, follow the speed at which the conversation or the speech is going. And then this attempt should enable students to cope with the demand for the English language used in the real context with actual purposes for it. So this will enable the students. This will actually help them to, learn the language and then use the language in the real life context in the actual purposes when they are in when they are in a necessity to use the language. So these are the strategies that we can adapt to improve the proficiency, to develop the proficiency of a person. So these are the strategies. What are these things are like, there are a few points, guys. If you remember them in the point wise, you will definitely be able to, fulfill the number of the word limit. You fulfill the number of the words that you are supposed to write in for an answer, for a 15 mark or a 10 mark answer. So this is all about the, proficiency, the concept of proficiency. So what we have discussed in this particular unit is that the definition of the proficiency, and then what it entails, what do you mean by proficiency? It entails the use of language in all the general purposes, and then there is no measure for the proficiency test. With the standardized test, we cannot actually assess the proficiency of a person. So United States have developed academic, and with the help of the foreign service institutes, they have set some criteria for the proficiency analysis of a person, and then academically the communicative approach to the language teaching has addresses this proficiency aspects of the language. That's how we have learned. And then proficiency defined by the Jim Cummins is what he said that about the CLAP and BICS that he has propounded. And then he said that CLAP is a natural acquisition of the language, and BICS is a natural acquisition of the language, and whereas CLAP is actually a cognitive academic language proficiency. It is not necessary that a kid has to acquire the BICS faster than the CLAP. It is not necessary like that. So CLAP and an individual entering a formal education system will actually get exposed in the beginning stage itself, exposed to the CLAP, and then acquiring the BICS becomes really a challenging thing for them. They need a lot of effort. So this is a concept of Jim Cummins. And then Noam Chomsky, as he said that he actually distinguished between competence and performance, competence and performance. And then we actually spoke about the Delham's communicative competence is, not linguistic competence, but it is overall usage of the language at different levels, like grammatically, social-linguistic competence, grammatical accuracy, and also social cultural appropriacy also. And then coming to proficiency development, we have understood all this in order to acquire, get the proficiency. What are the strategies that we need to follow, and the techniques that we need to, follow to develop overall proficiency of a language. So that's all for the day, guys. Hope I have done it. I am intelligible to all of you, guys. So I don't know, but okay, guys. I just have to take a picture of the class. 1 second, guys. If I don't do this one. So guys, I think you have understood this one. We have another 2 weeks to go, and then don't worry about anything, like, don't lose your sleep over the exams. Do well, all you will, of course, you are all very good. As far as I understand from our offline classes, I know few of you in person, so I think you should be rocking in your exams.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you. See you all in
Thank
my
you,
next
ma'am.
class. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you,
so much.
ma'am.
Yeah,
Bye,
thank
ma'am.
you. Bye-bye. See you. Have
Bye,
a great
ma'am.
Bye.
Bye,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Have a great evening, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, guys. Bye. See you.